Looking ahead, 2013. This is just off the top of my head. Wondering, Superman becomes a free agent. And he plans
Superman what? I can't hear
becomes
you.
a free agent, technically speaking. The heirs
He
of
became a
Schuster-
free agent?
Schuster's and Siegel's heirs will own the entire copyright in 2013 for Superman. Any kind of plans to snatch him up for the Marvel Universe?
Oh. Have Superman be part of the Marvel Universe? I like this guy too. I had never thought of it. See, I'm with Marvel, but I'm not really part of the Marvel decision-making team. I think my title is Chairman Emeritus, which really doesn't mean much, because I spend most of my time with Powell. The only thing Marvel, to prove they haven't forgotten me, I get these cameos in the movies, which is kind of nice. And people still come to the movies, but that's nice.
Because you're still the Magic, so...
Don't you forget it.
If you could do it, what would be your story for it if you could do it?
My story for what?
If you could just do it, just bring Superman.
Oh, I'd have to think about it for a couple of minutes, I think. But I did a Superman story once. I don't know if you ever saw that series, What If Stan Lee Had Created.
Yeah.
They did that a few years ago.
That's nice.
I did one with Superman, Batman, Green Lantern, I don't know, about 10 of them. And so I'd go back and I'd have to read that again. Oh, I think I had Superman, a guy from another planet, the way he was, but he was, I think, a criminal. And he landed on Earth, and I forget what the hell I did. It was a great story, though. I think John Buscema illustrated it.
Yeah.
I never can remember the stuff I write. That's really tragic because it's so
Well, if
good.
you did it, Stan, I'm sure it was great. So,
I like his attitude, too.
in this day and age of comic book movies are kind of the hot thing, and they're we've seen so many different characters brought to the big screen. Is it hard trying to come up with, I guess, what is in theory an original idea and bringing it to the page, or
yes.
in this case, to the screen? But is it hard nowadays to really come up with something that doesn't seem like it's just derivative of something else?
It's always been hard, but it gets harder all the time because just about everything has been done.
Yeah.
I've got a little file of ideas that I'm going to present to Disney and other companies in a while of new heroic characters. And the one thing about them, I didn't bother to write the whole story. I just have why they're different than the characters who are around now. And that takes a lot of thinking, because if you think about it, you think about superpowers. We already have characters who can fly, who can shoot fire from their hands, who are invisible. Whatever you think of, it's been done. And yet you want to keep coming up with new characters. So it gets harder and harder. Luckily, being somewhat of a genius, I'm able to handle it.
On that note of genius, how much involvement did Disney put upon you, considering you are Stan Lee? Did they just go, "Oh, it's Stan, just whatever he says, just do it"?
No, they're
or
not that dumb.
Were they? What's going on over there? It's Stan. Look out! No.
Well, I wish people did have that attitude, but no, I act as the producer, and they do the story, they do the artwork, they send it to me for my comments. And what they do is so great, my comments are very minor. The one comment I had was when one of the characters is saying something and you put the words on the screen, open his mouth! Don't have him drawn with his mouth shut while he's supposed to be talking. I think that happened once or twice. It doesn't mean anything. But that's about the level of my suggestions, because they really are so good at what they do that I'm in awe of them,
How about your involvement with the actors? Natasha said she loved working with you. You were a
Well,
laugh a
I'm a
minute.
joy to work with.
She called you a flirt, even.
She what?
She called you a flirt.
She did call you a flirt. I need to have a talk with that woman. She's spreading vicious lies.
But the question is,
My wife better not read this.
As the producer and giving your comments after you see the footage and hear some of the audio, did you ever feel like you had to get involved while it was being done and say, well, it'd be better if you did it this way?
I would like to. I would like to be at all the audio recording sessions, but I'm not. I don't have the time to go. And again, they know what they're doing. They're pretty good. I go to the ones where I say something, so I can thrill to how beautifully I do it. And but no, they're professionals. They don't need me. It's a funny thing, in some of the releases I've seen, that Stan Lee hired Natasha. I didn't hire her, they hired her. They told me about it. I said, that's great.
Hey, take credit, Stan.
But
Yeah. It was you. It was you.
well, I'll end, if she's,
I'll
I'll
take it if you
probably
won't.
end up taking the credit for it. I take the credit for everything.
So in the last couple of, I could say in the last, especially like in the last 10 years, time travel has become the bane of a superhero world in a way because it gets very convoluted and confusing. Do you guys have any guidelines or rules of thumb to the storytelling?
Well, one of the guidelines is don't be too damn convoluted. That's the first one. And no, just tell good stories. That's the only guideline we ever have. Tell them so that people can understand them, and so that people want to see what comes next. There should always be some suspense. But that's it. It's the same guidelines you have for any story.
So no boards with strings about we've been to this epic, we've been to this.
I'm sorry, I
epic.
can't
So
hear
no
you.
board of strings keeping track of where the time travel has gone, where it should be going next in the storylines.
Well, that's really up to Omar, the writer, to keep track of those things. I have no memory.
We've got time for 2 more questions.
And he's a great writer, I might add. His dialogue and the way he cuts from thing to thing. If you read the script, it's just like a motion picture script. He's very good.
I love what you said in there about, I think you called this a comic book of the air. I think that's a phrase you use.
In a way, yeah.
Would you care to kind of expand on that in terms of how you think this fits into the whole realm and who?
Of the air, because you're sending it over the airwaves, so it's probably not the airwaves. That shows how much I know about technical thing, but it goes over the airwaves. If you get it on your telephone, your cell phone, you'll get it over the internet. And you'll see it in all its glory with all the special effects and the movement and the noise and the music and the sounds. And it's the next evolution of the comic book, I guess, which doesn't mean, and don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean it'll replace the comic book. It's not meant to replace the comic book any more than television replaced movies or books or anything. It's just another form of comics, really, as far as I can tell.
In terms of extending the concept of comics and where everything has come since the first sketchbook you picked up and doodled in to where we are today, 40 years of Comic-Con, wax philosophical about where things are, where they've been.
Well, where they are today, if you look at an old comic book, the kind I was doing in the 60s, and you look at a present-day comic book, there's such a difference right there, because the new comic books, every panel is like some sort of a fantastic illustration. They're colored by computer. The lettering is done by computer. You sort of want to cut out almost every panel and have it framed and hang it on the wall. They're like oil paintings in a way. Whereas the stuff we did, and the artists were magnificent, but they were doing 3 pages a day sometimes. Kirby would do 4 pages a day. Today, the artist may spend a day or day and a half on one panel, coloring it and working on it. And it's slower and it's more painstaking, and it almost looks like a different type of story, of storytelling. So comics have changed in the sense, and also, years ago you had comic writers who were like me, just guys who wrote comics. Today, comics have become such a big business that you have people who write screenplays, who write novels, who are doing comics, because they know if they write a good one, there's a chance it'll be made into a movie, and it'll make them. You know what I mean? So the same with the artists. Years ago, it was really tough to get good artists to do comics. They could make more money in advertising. Today, every artist wants to do comics because they get to keep their original artwork after it's published, and the ones who are really good, they can sell those original drawings for a hell of a lot of money at a comic book convention or at an auction, and that didn't hold true years ago. So in that sense, everything has changed. But it still boils down. You need a good story, you need good drawings, it has to be well written, and it has to grab the reader. No
And
matter
it needs
what
to have your
format.
name on it.
Pardon me?
And it needs to have your name
Oh,
on
I like his attitude.
Thank you, guys.
it. Thank you.
Thanks,
That's
everyone.
it. Just when they were starting to say nice things about me.